The way we've done organic traffic, but maybe some paid too, for the last quarter century is dying. The way that I have stood on stages and told people to do marketing is going to end. And we can actually show it today. That's what I'm going to do in the next few minutes. But I also want to recognize that a claim like that requires some extraordinary evidence. And so what I'm going to walk you through in the first two-thirds of this talk is a lot of charts and data. Too many charts and data to try and take photos of all of them, but Joe has kindly said he will send you the slides, which will include every single one of these, and the links and the citations. Unlike Statista, I actually show you the citation without forcing you to pay. I think those guys are dicks, and I think what they do should be illegal, and you can quote me on that. I've had people come up to me, they're like, I work for Statista. I'm like, not cool, bro. Anu, what are you doing here? My God. This is amazing. Okay, I don't have time. We have to catch up later. All right, so we're gonna start with all these different organic channels, and I'm gonna walk you through them one by one. So first off, in social media, I think we all know Twitter's dying, yes. I do like this. So on the left here is organic reach. This is a chart I showed in a presentation 10 years ago when marketers were complaining about organic reach on Facebook falling dramatically to 2%. 2%, it's miserable. You know what it is today? I'd kill for 2% reach. You can't get 2% reach on any network, right? This is the average percent of people who would engage with a message that you posted on your site. Instagram, terrible. Twitter, you can look at any of these, Reddit, Threads, Facebook, it's all the same. TikTok has the highest one. TikTok has the highest one at 2%, 2.5% today. Last year. My expectation is, give it a few years, this will also crash and collapse. And also, it's very hard for brands to do well on TikTok versus individuals. YouTube's engagement has also been dropping, but it's sort of a recent drop and only in some areas. I think that YouTube is actually, it's sort of a mature network at this point, and it's so well used. Some data about Reddit as well. I think Reddit is actually growing dramatically, but I'm going to point out that I think a big part of Reddit's growth is Google. And so if I were them, I'd be very nervous about where that growth is coming from, as opposed to organic. There's a lot of people going to Reddit through Google. I think that's a risk factor. It would not surprise me at all, by the way. If I were Google, I would wait until I paid off the new Trump administration enough money and I could have permission to buy Reddit. I actually think that's probably what's going to happen. I would put some money down on that happening, right? Once they support his 2028 run, that's terrifying. We're hungry now, it's just... So Pinterest is another one that's really interesting. If you've been following Pinterest, you might remember that during COVID, they had this crazy spike in engagement. And a lot of people were using Pinterest much more. This is US, UK, EU, so you can see different parts of the world. And then post-COVID, they slumped, and now they are higher than they were then. So Pinterest has actually been growing dramatically. We've been doing some stuff with Pinterest and seeing it in the Sparktoro data, appearing for more and more audiences. If you look for anything in interior design or fashion or even travel, the use of Pinterest is very high. And they're not all SEO like Reddit. They've been getting a lot more organic themselves and brand. Threads and Blue Sky, kind of a story here. They're growing fast. I love Blue Sky. I love it. I love using it as a marketer. I think for us marketers, it's a great little community for us, but it is little. It's like 30 million to Threads, 250 million. Threads, by the way, I think this year will pass Twitter. So if you are not yet engaging in one of those two places, you might want to do that. We find it, for Sparktoro in particular, we find it about as good as Threads, not as good as LinkedIn, but now significantly better than Twitter. So here's the rub. I want to make a point with this that essentially what has happened is we saw growth of almost all these networks, this is EU, but I think inclusive of UK as well. And now it has flattened out. You see the growth just like turning flat. And so essentially, we are not seeing that growth of users. And when there's big growth of users in social networks, it is easy to get new followers. Like, I look at my old Twitter account, which has like 500,000 followers. They almost all came during Twitter's like 2009 to 2015 growth ramp. It was easy. People were just signing up for Twitter, and Twitter was recommending my account to them. And so, tons and tons of people. Not that I don't totally want to drink Harry's water, but is that cool if I steal? Okay, awesome. Oh man, even opened for me. Service, I'm telling you. The other thing that I want to bring up about social networks that I think is important. Yep, that went really good. Should have had James take it all the way off. Oh, good, and the little plastic bits are in my mouth. Lovely. The other thing about social networks is every single platform prioritizes native content. Native content, zero-click content, which my colleague Amanda Natividad at Sparktoro sort of coined this term, right? That is where, so when we put up a post with a link and a post with no link, same content, it's 10x the reach. This is true on Facebook, it's true on LinkedIn, it's true on Threads, it's not true on Blue Sky, but Blue Sky has no algorithm biasing against links. Like intentionally they don't, they designed it this way, which is super cool. I love Blue Sky because I can post things that do terribly there and there's no streak, like they don't have the engagement streak penalty. I don't know if any of you feel this way, but I feel nervous when someone's like, hey, will you promote this thing for me on LinkedIn or Twitter or Threads or whatever? And I'm like, I want to, but it's going to drag down my engagement, and then my next post won't do as well, because they all use these algorithmic streaks. I don't know. They've made us all paranoid. This one, link. This one, no link. Again, 10x. This is about Amanda and I's average. Your mileage might vary, but as a result, we do a ton of zero-click marketing. This is referral data, traffic referral data, but it's only to publishers. So think like Guardian, Sun, New York Times, Newsweek, all those kinds of people. And yeah, essentially what you're seeing is that social has fallen off a cliff. So, sorry, not off a cliff, but steadily down over years. And that's every social network that's not Facebook. So, takeaways from social. So, average organic reach keeps on falling. Like every year it gets worse and worse on average. Every platform's growth is slowing, with the possible exception of Threads and Blue Sky, maybe a little bit of Pinterest and Reddit. All the social algos are biasing to native content. So like the practice that we had of going to social networks to promote the content that you might create, promote your new webinar, your new event, your new homepage, whatever it is, right? Trying to get someone from a network to your website is becoming like trying to get someone from a billboard to your website. I think we're going to have to start treating all of these platforms the way we treat outdoor or radio and television. This is the future. And they're sending out less traffic than ever. Okay. Let's move on to email real quick. Email is quite interesting in that it sort of bucks the trend of everything else. So this is general use of email. Have you heard this? You've probably seen articles about this. When the press wants clicks, especially from marketing world, they will write things like, Gen Z never uses email. And then if you go back 10 years in time, they'll be like, millennials don't use email. And if you go back even further, you can even find some articles from like 2003, 4, 5 that Gen X was not using email. Guess what happens when you need a driver's license? Or you got to get your first apartment, or you have to register to vote. Like, everybody gets an email. You get an email. You have to use email. I went back in time, personally, and built this chart, which is open rates and click-through rates from across 20 years, right? So they're from different sources. Some of them are like MailChimp. Some of them way back in the day are like Constant Contact, whatever the best source I could find was. And remarkable. Absolutely remarkable, right? 20 years of doomsaying, and yet the stats are nearly unchanged. This spike that you see at the end here, not a real spike. That's just Apple changing how the iOS opens emails. You guys are familiar with this? Okay, great. So what we do see that's a little concerning is that on average, people are clicking their email less. There's a slight decline in the last few years of people clicking through on emails. They're opening them just as much, they're engaging with them, but they don't click as much. And I think this is indicative of a problem that has been created from the rest of the web. I'm gonna call it like the TikTokification of the internet. And it's not of the internet, it's of human psychology. We like to do this, and we don't like to do this. That is what has been trained. We essentially swipe, we don't tap, right? We will browse and scroll, but we don't like to click. Don't take me out of the environment. You know what it's like? You know when you get in the shower and you're like, I don't want to get in the shower. But then you're in the shower and you're like, the shower's great. I don't want to get out of the shower. This is what it's like to be on Reddit or in your email or, scrolling through Facebook, whatever it is, Instagram. I think that's just where we are. So email as a channel, stronger than ever, for sure. Despite all this talk of the kids today don't email, the kids email as soon as they hit about 25. And traffic, that's tougher. That's tougher. One of the things we do, by the way, to combat this, that Amanda and I do, we stop taking, Louis, we've had your social posts that Amanda features in our email, and instead of linking to them now, she takes a screenshot. It still links, it still gives you credit, but consume it right in your email. You don't have to click out to go get the information. I don't know how many of you know, I used to be in the search world, so I have lots of data on search. Lots of people still turn to me for information about search. I cannot convince any large language model that I don't still work as an SEO. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Google. Blah, 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 oh my God, their market share is falling, it's disaster, all this hullabaloo around it. Google's been between 89 and 92% market share forever. Forever. They did announce that they see 5 trillion searches a year. I'm gonna come back to that in a minute, because that's the first time in 9 years they announced how many searches they used. I think I know why that is. So we looked at, I work with a company called Datos, who's our clickstream data provider, right? We pay them for data that powers part of the back end of Sparktoro. And the clickstream data basically looks at, all the URLs that you visit on not on your phone specifically, but a large panel of 10 million people, every URL that they visit on their mobile and desktop device. And so we're able to get data about growth of searches. So this is growth of all Google, and then, the google.com, web search, shopping, maps, video. And you can see that is a lot of growth. That is a lot of growth for a mature product. That is all the search volume that ChatGPT has times 4 in 1 year, right? Google grew by 4 ChatGPTs last year, which is pretty remarkable. You can see some data about the verticals that people are using, but despite that growth, are they sending traffic? Is Google still sending traffic? The answer is yes, absolutely, Google sends a lot of traffic, but in 2024, after Europeans searched, we looked at the data for millions of visits across all the Google searches that were performed, and you can see here, 40% of searches result in a click on something, right? Paid, organic, whatever, and 60% result in no click. Now, granted, many of those people perform another search, whether it's related to the first search or not, hard to say, but 60%, 0-click searches. If anyone's been following me for a while, you remember I did this study in 2018. That number was 50%. So this is rising. Google is taking an increasing share of searches. And as a result, for every 1,000 EU searches that are performed in Google, there are 374 of them that make it to the open web. The number one beneficiary of Google search? Google. Right? It's like YouTube, it's Google Maps, it's Google Hotels, it's Google Flights. And this is the EU. Y'all got, I realize the UK, EU, hopefully someday again. But y'all got self-preferencing rules, right? against Google, and yet it seems like they're violating. There was an article in the paper last week, or in the news last week, that Google may be up for violation of this and fines and all that, but yeah. All right, we're not gonna worry about paid ads. I'll show you US, which is not that dissimilar, so you can see that those EU rules not having a huge effect, but a little less in the US, 360 clicks. So that's the comparison, and the terrible news is that I did this study in June of last year, just before they rolled out AI overviews. So this number is almost certainly going to get much worse. Here's some data from our friends at Sierra Interactive. My buddy Will Reynolds did this, and yeah, you can see that that looks pretty horrifying. Looks like AI overviews take out 20 to 40% of clicks. Not great. We also looked at what people are actually using Google to do, because I was deeply interested in this. I had some theories about how much was navigational or brand search. And brand is a big portion. 45% of Google's searches are people who already know what they want. They're not searching for email marketing tool, they're searching for MailChimp. They're not searching for men's sneakers, they're searching for Nike. You got to win before they get to Google. You can't just do marketing in the search results. That's some like 2015 Rand Fishkin stuff. All right, so we also looked at search intent, and you can see there, whew, one third of Google searches are navigational. That is not, I'm interested in Nike shoes, that's Nike.com, right? Just take me to this website. Like you're just the yellow pages, but 40 years on. Also, the distribution is very sad, because years ago, do you remember years ago, Google had all these stats around 20% of all searches each day have never been seen before. And then 10 years ago, that number's 15%, and they haven't announced it in a long time. Well, 75% of all the demand is the top 20% of query terms. Right? This is across like hundreds of millions of searches performed by 10 million plus people. So look, Google is absolutely growing fast. AI overviews have definitely helped them. Sundar Pichai announced, right, that AI overviews make people search more. He's right. I think he's totally right. There's not even a hint of the death of search. Google is not dying. I don't care. You know that one LinkedIn bro who's like, Google's dead, man. That's my best casual American accent. Right? And he's like, I only use Perplexity. Or ChatGPT or Claude or whatever he's got. That guy, he's a one-off. Zero-click search is growing for sure, and almost half of all searchers already know what they want. Let's talk about AI tools. So, again, this is Datos's data. We're looking at people who are visiting exclusively desktop, because I think it's not quite fair. People don't use AI tools as much on mobile, so we're just going to look at desktop data here. And seeing ChatGPT there, right? 21% of users in Datos's panel visited ChatGPT at least once a month. That is massive. ChatGPT is now a top 10 worldwide website. They are huge. And they're not even the fastest growing one. Perplexity growing extremely fast, 6x growth, in what was that, 12 months, 10, 11 months, something like that. And you don't have to trust Datos's data. SimilarWeb, also a clickstream panel provider, same numbers, right? I also asked them, I was like, hey, can you guys tell me, do people who search Google, or people who search Perplexity or ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever, they also go to Google? And so, yep. It's only that one guy. It's just that bro. He's all alone and is 0.2%. But I want to be fair here. So many people, this is especially true in LinkedIn, but even at conferences and events, people come up to me, they're like, but don't you think Google's going to die? Look, I don't know, but here's what I do know. I'll try and walk you through this with the best, most high-quality data that I've got, and hopefully you can use this the next time this question comes up in one of your meetings. ChatGPT announced that they have 1 billion messages sent to them per day in December. Great. We're going to use Sam Altman and statement from the DealBook conference and trust him. And Google announced, if you remember, that 5 trillion number. I think they announced this only because Sam Altman announced his number. and the press was all over it, right? And the media's like, oh, is it the end for Google? SEMrush did some nice work here to give us two numbers that we really needed. When they analyzed 80 million ChatGPT prompts, they told us 8 messages per chat interaction on average. So like to get your answer to whatever your one question is in ChatGPT, you tend to send 8 messages, and 30% of interactions with ChatGPT are somewhat search-like, right? Like, is people looking for information or navigating somewhere, commercial, transactional. The other stuff is like, make my D&D character, do my homework for me, analyze this spreadsheet, stuff you can't do with Google. So we can take these and break it down, right? Billion messages per day, 8 messages per prompt, 30% of prompts have search-like intent. There we go. Huge number, 37.5 million searches per day. Thankfully, with Google, the math is real easy. One of those numbers is slightly bigger. I graphed it just so we could see, wow, that is. Look, I'm just saying, if your clients or your team or your boss is like, we've got to be in ChatGPT, you're like, what are we doing for DuckDuckGo? The math don't lie. All right, that is 373 times as much search volume in Google. I'm not saying people don't use ChatGPT, and it's not evenly distributed, right? If you're in B2B SaaS for like high-ticket items, yes, there's probably a really good reason to be in ChatGPT and these other places. But otherwise, I don't know. There's pie chart for people who still like pie charts. It looks real little, 0.25%. All right, so takeaways. AI tools, tiny slice of search. They send less than 1/10,000th as much traffic as Google. And comparing what people do directly with AI to Google is kind of folly, right? That overlap is only about 30%-ish. I'm going to breeze through this next section, talk a little bit about content and PR. I have a few graphs here, but to be honest, I think we are going to have to do more data to do another study specifically about sort of content world, the long tail of the web, to be able to do this. This is the one I like the best, which is an analysis of Reddit's posts. So this looks at people who posted links on Reddit, which is not that many, but it looks at the percent of them that shared diverse content from like lots of different websites versus all just a few websites. And so you can see back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, like it just keeps declining to 2020, and now we're just sharing less stuff from less places, which is frustrating. I don't know if the long tail of the web is dying for sure, but I do know it's getting an ever-decreasing percentage of attention and time. So, big question, does anybody still send traffic to the open web? So I asked Datos if they could help me answer this, and they were like, yes, we can, but it's a whole mess of data. Oh my God, I'm not even a data analyst professionally, but I spend so much time in Excel now. But I built it for me. I built it for me, I'm sharing it with you. There you go. Distribution of who sends traffic on the internet, it is 75% search, 14% social, 11% is everyone else. Search is what your stuff is. I broke this down again because I was like, what if we took out the top few hundred sites and looked at like the long tail of the web, and it's even worse. It's even worse, right? And then I asked, can we see it over time? And that answer is even more depressing, which is that Google and all sites are referring less and less traffic to the long tail of the internet. And when I say long tail, I mean anyone who's not in the top 200. The internet is becoming a lot like the American economy, very concentrated in a few brands and a few companies. That's where the power is. That's where the attention is. It sucks, right? Like, I love indie brands, I love indie coffee shops, I love indie restaurants, I love indie websites and indie businesses, and that does not appear to be what our planet is loving right now, at least not in developed economies. So I think if LLMs do grow, they're going to make this way worse. This is a look at the percent of traffic they refer out, which is teeny tiny, itsy bitsy. I'm sure you can tell from your own use of these tools. So, okay, traffic to the open web, overwhelmingly from search. Every source of traffic is falling. And every single platform is hoarding traffic for its own benefit and nefarious purposes. I don't know. And they're referring less and less to the long tail and to the open web. The summary here is, right, like, traffic's dying, attention is rising, like more people are on the internet consuming more content than ever before, but they are not clicking. And so I think if you're in digital marketing, or if you work with people who are, you can't be optimizing for traffic. Traffic is now, it's like a vanity metric, right? And instead, what we need to do is optimize for attention. We got to treat it like what it is, which is a place to be present. So I have 30 seconds left. That's going to be interesting. I think it's time to start building on rented land. Sure, I'm salty about my Twitter following dying, but you know what? I'm doing the same thing. I'm building on LinkedIn's rented land because I don't think we have a choice. I think that the way to think about this is all of these platforms are a place to get attention. And this has way more reach than our website. If people watch a video on our website, like we get maybe 500 to 2,000 views on our site, and I get between 10,000 and 100,000 on LinkedIn. I mean, why would I not do that? Even if it disappears tomorrow, we still had that influence there. I would argue this is rented land too. If you're in search, this is not owned media. This is not your website or email list. This is rented land, but it's a place to influence people. So remember, I told you about this graph. I showed you this graph earlier. That is what sends traffic, but that is not where people spend time. When I took that data and I looked at where visits happened, that's how the graph changed. Look at that. Search is only 10% of where we spend our attention and energy. Like, we're getting influenced in all these other places, they just don't show up in your analytics. And because they don't show up in your analytics, your boss, team, client doesn't prioritize you investing in them, which is madness. That is insanity. My wife, Geraldine, I think said she's going to be here for some of the afternoon talks. Oh, she's here already. A celebrity in our midst, my God. So you got to be like Geraldine and follow your audience wherever they go, wherever they've been trolling her lately about her American political opinions. Rudely, by the way, and unfairly. Number two, I think we have to drop traffic as a KPI. And we have to measure audience size, reach, interest instead. If you're just focused on traffic, you're stuck with search. Remember this HubSpot apocalypse? I don't know if you saw this in your feeds, right? Oh my God, there's traffic's down so much. It's all over. Well, what? The same time, this is exactly, so they announced their Q4 report, which is exactly what I did when I saw the traffic was down. Yeah, because traffic down, revenue up, I think this is going to be a trend of the next 2 years. I have a whole bunch of frameworks about measuring this, which I've linked to. So I'll let you figure out find the blog post and figure that out for yourself. But this is what we do. We build these dashboards to be like, what's happening at the top of the funnel? How many people are converting at the bottom? Great, our efforts are working. Okay, side note, real quick. If you choose channel investments based on referral data, you will become Google's fool. Notice how professional I am using the word fool. Just really quality speech writing there. That is because everything that happens in all these places turns into one of these, right? You see something on Reddit, you see something on YouTube, then you go to Google and you search for the brand, and then who gets the credit? Google. And what did they deserve? What did they do? They did nothing. They're like a traffic cop, right? They just told you to make a left. It's not fair. Okay, my last point, I think you should find where your audience pays attention and market to them in those places. So if you were to build a big chart of whatever, there's 80,000 people in our field or industry or whatever who are on Slack and WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and whatever, and then there's 90,000 people who search for unbranded Google keywords, and there's 100,000 people who pay attention to email newsletters in our field, and then you layer on top of that where you spend budget, and you will see a big mismatch. And that is a problem, and that is something you can address. You can be like, hey, are we sure that we want to put all our eggs in ChatGPT when DuckDuckGo has 3 times the search traffic? Every audience is different. No two companies' marketing channel mixes should be the same. If you wanted to reach people in a particular field, you should go and find where they pay attention. I'm showing you in Sparktoro, but there's lots of ways to do this. This is my opinion, that the future of digital has to be about more than just Google. It has to be inclusive of KPIs that aren't just clicks and traffic, and that we should be focused on influencing audiences in the right places with the right message at the right time. Isn't that what marketing always was? Pretty sure. Thank you very much.